Watch this.
Ahead on a Friday edition of the 208 and beyond. Officials with the West Ada School District are speaking about their decision to remove inclusivity posters from a middle school classroom. They're just not talking to us about it. It was a big week at the Idaho State House. We're diving into the week that was, one that included some of the biggest moves made by the Idaho legislature so far this session. There were dozens of names for the mountain as we know as Mount Rainier, and plenty of people take issue with that name. Now there's a renewed push to restore it to its original tribal name. We'll dive in. The controversy over the West Ada School District's decision to ask and force a middle school teacher to remove 2 inclusive signs from her classroom saw quite the development overnight. So in case you've missed this story somehow, the sign from the teacher says that everyone in the room is welcome, important, accepted, respected, encouraged, valued, and equal. And the sign clearly says, quote, everyone is welcome here. The school district claims that these signs violate policies that require classroom content to be neutral. Since that decision was announced, KTVB, we have reached out to West Ada multiple times for an interview. All of those requests have been denied in one form or another. The latest request came just this afternoon. And it turns out it's a picking and choosing game, as we have come to realize. Turns out the district isn't entirely opposed to interviews on the topic. They just don't want to talk to us about. It appears Marcus Myers, the chief academic officer of West Ada, he went on a local political podcast to discuss the controversy. Yep, public official whose salary is paid for by taxpayers declined interviews with established media organizations with wide viewership in favor of a sympathetic podcast interview. They even shared on the taxpayer-funded social media accounts for West Ada clips from the interview. Softball questions about who is welcome at West Ada. Meyer said yes to a bunch of questions like, would my gay or adopted black sibling be welcome at West Ada? He said absolutely on the show. I guess just don't put it up on a classroom sign, I guess. I don't know. We want to clarify this in an interview, and we will continue to request interviews with the school district. We prefer that over long worded statements. Maybe wearing a hat and a hoodie during the interview would make them feel more comfortable. I actually envy that journalist, that person gets to work in an outfit that I think I would be much cooler in. You know, we lost the ties. Maybe we can do hats and sweatshirts next. That's for real. Anyways, as the controversy goes viral across the country, Aaron Paul, a Centennial High School graduate, you probably saw him in Breaking Bad. He was in the West Ada School District at some point, and he publicly criticized West Ada on social media. It's getting a lot of attention. He wrote in part, quote, "This is absolutely insane. Idaho, do better. I'm proudly from Idaho, but this is crazy. We need to protect our children and teach them at a very young age that everyone is in fact welcome here. Unreal. Bravo to this incredible teacher," he writes. "We are so lucky to have teachers like you that value simple human decency. Be kind to each other and hold each other up. We are in this together. Stay strong. Hate will never win," he says. Again, West Ada Superintendent, you're invited. We would even talk to you live here on the 208. Let's talk a little bit about politics, all right? Busy week at the big building in downtown Boise. We usually call it the State House. And ideas that have been in the works for weeks have now been crossing the finish line to the governor's desk. Other controversial topics, and including new ones, are building steam towards potential decision days. We had quite the variety of big ticket topics this week. Here's a window into the week that was. To start the week, the Idaho House and Senate sent Governor Little a bill that protects the medical field. Specifically, lawmakers crafted a bill that protects them from being forced to do non-emergency work against their conscience. And this applies to really anything. It covers doctors, nurses, pharmacy workers, the whole gambit of medical professions. Those who voted against it brought up serious situations the law could create. But sponsors say that this is in response to threats to the rights of conscience in healthcare. They say something that's increasingly common and severe in recent years.
And this doctor's telling me that she doesn't or he doesn't think this is good for my child. Don't you want the doctor to tell you the truth?
The primary directive is to do no harm. And that's not just a suggestion that you filter through your personal beliefs. It's an absolute professional commitment, and that has guided the medical practice for centuries.
Tuesday, House Bill 83, Idaho's immigration bill, passed the Senate right along party lines. It had previously passed the House about a month ago, but because it was amended in the Senate, it's now back in the House awaiting final approval. And what it would do is, well, go to the governor's office from there. It makes undocumented entry into Idaho a misdemeanor crime and re-entry a felony. Plus, it creates a brand new state crime of trafficking a dangerous alien for anyone knowingly bringing in an undocumented, dangerous convicted criminal into the state. Critics question the impact and reality of undocumented residents and their contributions to Idaho.
Every time we go to the grocery store and we buy milk at a decent price, it's because we need undocumented workers to come and do the jobs that your kids and my kids won't do.
Halfway through the week on Wednesday, a major accomplishment for Idaho Republicans. Quick action on the latest version of the Medicaid restrictions bill ended with the Idaho Senate advancing the proposal to Governor Little. The legislation looks to tighten some program ideas as a cost-saving measure for the state.
This legislation takes a responsible approach to cost containment by implementing participant cost sharing, work requirements for able-bodied adults, and strengthened eligibility verification measures.
Their proposal is now awaiting action from Governor Little. He could sign it, veto it, or allow it to become Idaho law without his signature. Thursday, Governor Little signed in a controversial law, making the firing squad the state of Idaho's primary method of execution. Secondary remains lethal injection. The law won't go into effect until July of next year, which will give the Idaho Department of Correction time to remodel a facility that's designed and capable of doing a firing squad execution. Idaho is one of only 5 states that is authorizing the use of a firing squad, and when the law does go into effect, unless a state beats Idaho to it, it'd be for the first in the union to have the firing squad as the primary method of execution. Finally, on Friday, after clearing the full Senate, a House committee advanced the Idaho Medical Freedom Act. It, among other things, prevents things like vaccine and mask mandates as conditions for things like employment, going to school, going into a private business, or utilizing government services. I'm sure you picked up from the tone of this idea that, yes, this is in response to public health ideas and actions during the COVID era.
Imagine that we were forced to stand 6 feet apart, that we were told that we had to mask in order to engage in normal life, that where I live, we couldn't go into businesses, we couldn't attend any kind of events, we couldn't go to hotels and restaurants if we didn't show our papers.
The proposal is now on its way to the full House, the final hurdle before it could land on the governor's desk for possible approval and, well, becoming a law itself. And that's a wrap. That's the week that was. Sticking at the State House, a follow-up from our coverage just yesterday about concerns that the recent water mitigation deal between surface and groundwater users could be in jeopardy. A part of the deal, it really depends on the governor's call to invest millions of dollars into water infrastructure projects. Those projects help ensure that the terms of the agreement, things like water use and saving water, make sure that those goals can be met. And to be clear, this isn't a government handout, farmers waiting for them to pay for everything. No, farmers in water districts are and will spend considerable amounts of money on their own to pay for crucial projects. The concern, though, is that the governor's request for $30 million in ongoing funds was stalling in the State House. But just this morning, new life to a concept that was stuck in a House committee. This morning, the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee approved the $30 million in ongoing funding for those projects, and it's actually built into the budget for the Department of Water Resources instead of just being a standalone policy bill. The governor's office even sending out a press release, a move that eases concerns from farmers that were starting to wonder if lawmakers would get the deal done. Still, it does have a ways to go, but if you ask those in the water world, movement is better than nothing. Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, they continue to carve up the federal government. Thousands of employees at multiple agencies across the country have been fired, and more jobs are on the chopping block. DOGE has also cut multiple grant programs that farmers and nonprofits they rely on, and that includes organizations that help people fight eviction. Today, Idaho's Intermountain Fair Housing Council announced that it has joined a lawsuit against the Trump administration. The other organizations are Texas, Massachusetts, and Ohio. Those groups are some of the 66 housing rights nonprofits across the nation that got a letter last month saying that key grants that funded, well, they were being cut off. And the lawsuit is demanding that the grants be reinstated to prevent more layoffs and service reductions. A tribe in Washington state is working to learn more about the many native names of Mount Rainier. And the Native American tribe is doing this with the hope of eventually restoring the original name of the mountain, or as close as it could be, Mount Rainier. Connor Board from our sister station in Seattle has the story.
At Chief Leshai High School, the Puyallup tribe's native language is seen.
It's part of our identity.
A language Puyallup tribe language specialist and linguist Zalmai Zahir learned early.
I started learning Lushootseed from my stepfather when I was 11 years old. He was a Puyallup tribal member.
Zahir just published a paper focused on analyzing the many names of Mount Rainier.
There have been many questions about what is the name of the mountain and what does it mean?
He found there are at least 20 different names used by different tribes in the region, or names that used to be used.
14 of the names go back to one original word that is that Tacoma came from, Tacoma.
That name has to do with the mountain being a water source. Other names have to do with the mountain wiping the sky.
4 of the names come from another word that is more or less the pronunciation. And then we have 2 other words. One is Upper Chehalis, and then the other is Chinookwawa.
The mountain was named Mount Rainier back in 1792 by British explorer George Vancouver. He named it after his friend, Peter Rainier, a member of the British military who had never been to Washington.
Why are we calling this gorgeous, beautiful mountain after a man that never even was here?
The name that it carries now, and I don't use that name. I don't say it. I call it our sacred mountain.
Connie McLeod hopes to see the mountain renamed as close as possible to its original name, which is why they contracted with Zahir for the paper.
That's where our water comes from. That's where the nourishment for not only the earth and the salmon, but for our people.
Not only do they hope the nature of the mountain will be protected for future generations, they hope their language will too.
What are we going to leave here so that when they come upon this, they're really going to get to enjoy themselves and enjoy their identity and their cultures?
Here at the state of Idaho, we love rodeos, and the state of Colorado, they love it too. They're home to a brand new rodeo champion, though not the kind you might be thinking of. Ron Torres, a garbage truck driver from Commerce City, competed in the 2025 Rodeo National Championship in Arizona. Here's Amy Hunter.
For those who think there's no glory in trash, a Commerce City receptacle driver is ready to prove them wrong.
Number 17, Ron Torres.
Ooh, representing the Mile High, baby.
Ron competed in the 2025 Rodeo National Championship in Arizona.
There he goes.
It's a biannual event held by waste collection company Republic Services to showcase the skills of its truck drivers.
The first thing in the competition is the serpentine, where we have to snake through toters, forward and backward without hitting any of them. Yes, it's difficult, but those are maneuvers I do every day, so that's kind of like helps me out.
From parallel parking
Nice job.
to navigating the tight space of an alley,
If you hit anything, you lose points.
Ron showed his skills could not be beat. Ron can officially say he is one of the best garbage truck drivers in the country, at least among Republic Services drivers.
I give all the credit to my wife because she pushed me into this, told me to give it a shot, and I did. And look at me now.
It's a title Ron is proud to hold.
Oh, the champ.
And one he says any of his fellow garbage truck drivers should compete for.
Just give it a shot. You never know. You might win. You might beat me.
Photos from the blood moon last night, super cool to see. Another cool thing that we saw in the Treasure Valley today, soft hail and snow in some parts, otherwise known as grapple. But that's coming from the two systems that we have headed our way. The first one is coming through tonight. Here's a look outside. You can already see the impacts from that system making its way in. 45 degrees, winds are light, but that sun is trying to get through, but there's so much cloud coverage, it's just not shining quite that much. 40s in the Treasure Valley right now. The Magic Valley is quite a bit cooler, 10 degrees or so down in the 30s, 20s or 30s in the mountains. Here's a look at that system making its way inward from the west coast. And as we get closer, you can see it's already precipitating in snow and rain from the Treasure Valley, the West Central Mountains, and the Magic Valley, and the Central Mountains, of course. So there's going to be a lot of impacts with these systems on the way. We have rain and snow going to be continuously popping in and out of all of southwest Idaho, and more so the southern half of Idaho altogether. Winds as well will come and go and be a little bit of a nuisance. Up to 20 inches of snow in elevations higher than 6,500 feet. Here's a look at the 7-day forecast. Tomorrow the high is going to be 52, but then we're going to warm up almost 10 degrees on Sunday because tomorrow night we have a warm front coming through. Tomorrow morning you might see a dusting of snow on the Treasure Valley, but it's not looking like it's going to be anything that sticks or accumulates. After that system rolls out Monday, we're going to cool down by 10 degrees or so, and we're looking like hopefully going to be drying out on Tuesday afternoon.
A student brought a gun to school in Mountain Home. A member of one of the largest drug cartels reportedly in the world was sentenced here, and the Northwest Lineman College held a rodeo to honor its graduates. Here's the 411 from around the 208.
A Mountain Home High School student brought a loaded gun to class Wednesday morning. According to a letter sent to parents by the school, a student reported to high school staff that a classmate had a gun. School security found the student and confiscated the weapon. The Mountain Home Police Department investigated and nobody was hurt. School officials want to remind everyone that weapons of any kind are strictly prohibited on campus, school events, and buses. A Sinaloa cartel leader in Idaho has been sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. 44-year-old Hector Ojeda Manuel Aponte was arrested for distributing about 40 pounds of meth every 1 to 2 weeks. Aponte was the go-to guy for the Sinaloa cartel in Idaho. He was arrested by a joint effort from the DEA and the Nampa Police Department and was sentenced by acting U.S. Attorney for Idaho, Justin Whatcott. The Northwest Lineman College Rodeo kicked off this morning. The rodeo allowed students to showcase their skills they've learned over the last few months of classes. The event featured a series of challenges meant to demonstrate their skills.
Very first, we have a person that climbs up a pole and does a knot. We'll tie a knot with a rope that they have around their neck. Tie it, throw it down, and then it's kind of a relay race. So as soon as that person gets down, the next person is going to go up and switch a pin insulator, a glass pin insulator from one side to the other, tighten it up, and then come down. The next event will be a person goes up and swaps a dead end insulator from one side to the other. And then the next one, and the very last one, and it's the most interesting, is the egg climb. So a person will climb up with an egg in their mouth, up a 35-foot pole, and then come all the way back down, and they have to present the egg to the judge.
They hold the rodeo there 3 times a year to celebrate the finish of students' 15-week courses, and about 200 lineman students just graduated at the Morrison Center. We're just 1 week away from the FIS Alpine World Cup coming to the slopes in Sun Valley. Ski racers have already arrived to the Gem State and they're starting training on the race course. It's a week-long ski racing event and it's the top 25 ski racers in the world coming in both men's and women's. There are 4 races and the event is also a qualifier for the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan. The event will also host a first-of-its-kind festival called the 5850 Fest, featuring artists like Sugar Ray and the Bare Naked Ladies. We'll have live KTVB coverage of the World Cup next week, so be sure to tune in for that or follow updates on our social media. And that's the 411 from around the 208.
All right, a lot of good comments. Let's get to them. What do you say? We'll start with this one from Jack in Boise. West Ada refusing to do an interview with an established local news, but going on a right-wing podcast is certainly not neutral. I want to say Matt Todd and the Ranch podcast, they do a good job, and he interviews guests from across the political spectrum. Good questions on good topics. No disrespect to the Ranch podcast. He does a good job. We're more questioning why West Ada wouldn't come and talk to us. Susan in Meridian says, end date. They continue to be paid, talking about lawmakers. How about stopping payment to them on the day the session is supposed to end? So the supposed to end date it's hard because they have an estimate of when lawmakers want to be done, but depending on what's going on down there, it's hard to track. But yeah, some states, like our neighbors just over in Oregon, they do have a hard out, so maybe that would push things aside. Joe, you and Brian are part of the problem, so why should anyone from the school district talk to you or anyone from KTVB? It's not about everyone being welcome. It's about politics, and you know it, and the teacher knows it. We're on the side of accountability and transparency. No political beliefs here. We're just wanting answers to fair questions.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.